All right, music fans, welcome back. It's Dave, the Real Music Observer, observing real music in real time for real people just like you right there, just like this dude here. Listening to Eddie Trunk talk about what happened to the music industry in the 80s, there's a video that I found on YouTube which was right up my alley. And I'm listening to it and I'm hearing him talk, and he did get a few things right, but he ignores the elephant in the room about what happened. And that is the bands that replaced all of what he calls hair metal, and I've never really glommed onto that tune because when you say metal, I mean, you could be talking about a band like Icon, for instance, who were in the 80s and had a hard rock sound that was, Savatage, something like that, or just trying to think of good examples. Poison, uh, Tesla. Tesla had a different sound, and that's what was great about the 1980s. Like you had a band like Tesla, you had a band like Winger, and you had a band like Poison. So if you wanted, say, more of a keyboard-based sound, maybe you'd like Poison more than Tesla. Uh, there was a variety, even though people seem to throw it all in the same category, and it's not. There were variations. I mean, Skid Row is different from Rat, okay? Def Leppard is different from, a lot of the other groups that were in there, but certainly part of that whole scheme. I mean, I'd have to go down a list, but there was tons of variety. Van Halen was around, okay? Trunk makes the point to the caller that everything became formulaic, and he was working in the business, and the labels were saying, well, they can't play, but we can teach them how to play. They look good, and this, and there are bands that weren't very attractive. Okay, I don't think anybody signed Danger Danger to a record contract for their good looks. Okay, it's Ted Poley could write incredible melodies and hooks, like big fat things that people can sing to. They can crank the top down to the car. They can put their arm around their significant other, and they can have a great old time in the car driving down the road. All right? Rock and roll had been like that since the 1950s, folks. Okay? Every decade had that. All right? Depending on what band you were listening to, that was the idea. A good time, a party and good time. We hit the early 90s, and all of a sudden, it's like doom and gloom and angst and writhing and pain, and please come into my world and feel the pain with me and celebrate the pain and sing with me about the pain, even though the songs aren't melodic and they're really not that singable. Okay? They're really not that singable. You're running down the road singing to, what, Stone Temple Pilots? Okay, that's all I'm going to do. That was my Seal imitation, okay? And that's how I vision. All of those bands had a guy who sounded like that. Pick your band, Alice in Chains. They all sounded like the dude had his foot caught in a bear trap, and he was trying to get out. And it's like, no, you can make fun of anybody you want from the 1980s, vocally speaking. You could find the worst of the worst vocals, and they're likely way better than anything from the grunge movement. Okay, Eddie Trunk. Here's my take, buddy. Here it is. Okay, the 90s come along. Maybe this has run its course, like every decade. What are we going to replace it with? Well, this band, look, alternative music from the 80s, by the way, and I was in college radio for a number of years. I looked at some of that music, that like Killing Joke and stuff like that. That was laying the groundwork for what would become grunge, okay? And it was lousy in college. I pretended I liked it in college because I was in college and I wanted to be cool and hip and all that stuff, but I was sneaking out to go see Kansas. I was going out. I saw Chicago in 1986. I was still in college managing the alternative rock underground college radio station. Melody, I had to have it. And most of the stuff, the underground stuff I liked, was melodic. Things like the Hoodoo Gurus from Australia. Great band that, whatever, they're just gone. It's fine. They should have gotten bigger. They got onto some mainstream rock stations toward the end of the decade, but didn't have the success they should have enjoyed. The point being is secretly I was like Jones, and I needed a hit. I needed some melodic rock hits, and the theory that this music, became like better. Okay, this is better. We're gonna promote this now because the hair and the cheese and the dressing up and the leather, we're just gonna replace that with ripped jeans and flannel shirts, and that's a style now. It was a style for me, I think, in 1980. I had to go to school with flannel shirt and corduroys. Okay, no ripped jeans. That was a style for 1 year. This was, geez, I slept in my clothes overnight. My hair's a mess. I just rolled out of bed after a binge of whatever. Okay, and how many of these guys, by the way, are no longer on planet Earth because their music was not just music, it was actually who they were. It was like their life. Okay, and they integrated that negative, destructive behavior into that music. It was woven right into it. I'm not really sympathetic when songs are, singing about heroin or suicide or whatever the topic du jour is on those records. And that's another thing. You got to spend, as a guy, I don't want to spend all day long trying to figure out what the song is about. Okay? I know what, Nothing But a Good Time is about by Poison. I know what that's about. It's easy. And when I turn on the radio and I want to have fun and relax and unplug and escape from the crap, I want a band like that, Poison. I want Rat. I want Winger. I want all of that stuff that I grew up with because that's good music, okay? That sounds good. And these are mostly topics that I don't have to think about. And I know that maybe that sounds shallow and stupid, but you got to address all of the stuff going on here, Eddie. It's not just, your theory that it became formulaic. I mean, yeah, and then he goes, well, grunge became formulaic and then kind of burned itself out. But guess what? We're still suffering because of what grunge did, all right? We're still suffering because a bunch of labels said, this crap is cheaper to produce, this crap is more viable right now because it's a 180 from the other stuff and we can sell it as being cool, and now you don't have to actually put on a leather pair of pants and get the hairspray and do all that complicated stuff. You can just, roll out of bed and look like you're grunge. You can walk down the street and people say, hey man, you're grunge. And the word actually is very realistic. It's a very truthful word. It's grungy. It's dirty. It's dingy. It's dank. It's doom-filled. It's negativity. Never glommed onto it. I mean, people listen to it. I don't know how you don't have a bad attitude all the time listening to that crap. It's, as I get older, truth is important to me, all right? And when you're in corporate, which Eddie Trunk is a corporate guy, all right? He's been working at a very high corporate level for a long time. And he's on Sirius, and he's got to kind of toe the line, even though he said it was unfair and it shouldn't have happened, and woe is it, but he's doing nothing to fix it. He could talk about the old 80s artists, but what he needs to be doing, and I've made this point, is he needs to be talking about these bands coming from Sweden, coming from Italy. Go over to the Frontiers label, make a deal with them, say, hey, let me hear what you got coming out, and we'll have one of these groups come over and play a concert, maybe live in the studio, maybe we'll do some big interviews. This band Perfect Plan, okay, that I've been talking about, wow, what a great band. And they're not going to get any exposure here in the States. That's why they're so excited that I did a couple of videos. I'm going to continue to help them and promote them. That's the kind of stuff Eddie Trunk should be saying, hey, here's the revival. It's coming. And we're going to be on the front lines. You know why that doesn't happen? Because the corporate guys don't want it to happen. They don't want it to happen. Because they were the ones back in the day that screwed all of these older bands over. And they just probably want the whole thing, want all of these bands to age and just die off so they don't have to think about what they did, okay? They just want it to and that and the fact that they're still able to put out stuff on these labels with very little talent, and that's what I mean. The effects of this whole movement are still going on. You have a 14-year-old girl who got signed to Atlantic Records for, I think she got a $14 million advance, I think $1 million for each year she'd been alive, because she cussed out her mother on the Dr. Phil show. All right? And she has absolutely no talent. And I know that's a different segment of the business. It's a different, if it's rap, I don't know what it is. I have no idea. The point being is that all of this reverberated in every format, every mainstream format, rock, pop, top 40, even adult contemporary. You got to deal with like Justin Timberlake and Justin Bieber on adult contemporary stations that used to be playing James Taylor and Carly Simon and Boz Scaggs. I mean, holy crap, Batman! Just those three names alone, it's like a lifetime worth of talent with three individuals, and now we've got things on there that, you know, it's probably all voice corrected software crap, all computer generated, and this is, believe me, that whole movement in the early 90s has spawned what we have today, 25 years later. All right? So, Eddie, do us a favor, buddy. Call some groups overseas. Call Frontiers and say, hey, you guys got some good music over there. And believe me, I don't like everything on Frontiers, but there are a number of record labels with some very interesting music that if you have this crack research team, which, you know, you're working for Sirius, come on. Get a guy on the phone, get a guy on a computer, do the stuff that I do, surf the web, surf YouTube, and find it. You know, sign up for notifications. Do you ever think of doing that? You know, how did I hear Perfect Plan? I signed up for a notification, and one morning, boom, it popped up on my Twitter feed. I clicked on it, and then I did the Holy Crap Batman, and, you know, that's how you hear new music, Eddie, and I think that's what's most important. If you want to help all those fans that wonder what happened, like your caller wondered what happened, guess what, Eddie? I know what happened. You guys all decided simultaneously, and yes, I'm talking about you, Eddie, because you worked for them. You told us, you know, I was at the major label, and they all just decided it's cheaper, it's easier, who cares what we throw out there? We're throwing it out there, and it influenced a generation of people in a very negative way. Rock and roll was always about fun. It was always about blowing off steam. Sticking it to the man, maybe a little bit, but it certainly wasn't about writhing in the corner with a needle stuck in your arm, wondering how you're going to get through the day, because that's your experience, that's your life experience. Record labels would say, nope, that's too crazy and destructive. Come back with something a little more upbeat and optimistic. So that's really what happened, and that's my take on it. I'm Dave, I'm the Real Music Observer. Sorry for the length of this video, but a little fired up because I'm into the truth, and when somebody kind of spouts a half-truth, it needs to get corrected. All right, talk to you soon, everybody.